Welcome along, everybody. We are back for bronze action here, this time in Imola, then for round 6 of season 9. And right then, just about going to get going. Good timing indeed. Then I am freezing my proverbial things off. No bad words there, but yes, anyway, we are ready to get going for Imola, and in the meantime, if you can hear me shivering, it's because my heating is not on, and I'm cold, but nonetheless, hopefully we get some spicy Italian racing here tonight then, so we can see, well, we can warm up a bit, but there we go then, getting ourselves nice and ready to race here in Italy, and looking forward to getting ourselves started, and we'll run through the championship order as it stands, as we get ourselves sorted, and hopefully we can crack on then with the qualifying itself then. Looking a bit overcast tonight then to start off the qualifying. In the lead of the championship then, for the drivers that is, it's Luke in the kick Sauber then, who is leading the way by 20 points now to Dan, is his closest rival, that is, in P2 in the Alpine is Dan. 74 points then for Dan, 94 for Luke then. Dynamo Dan, the other Dan, in the Red Bull, of course, this season, is in P3 then in the Drivers' Championship, then 62 points for him, and he is trying to make some ground up on the two ahead of him, of course, then, but he's got some challengers as well then. That is Mushroom, who is in P4 then on 54 points, and Smithy Almighty in the kick Sauber, the second kick Sauber then in the 5th place, I should say, then 47 points for him. And then we've got Mr. Elite then in the Haas, 44 points then in P6 then. Jinner then, no, is it Jinner? Yes, it is Jinner, sorry, who's got his race win then last week in Portugal. Then the 42 points for the, no, 40, goodness me, I can't even read. It's too small for my old eyes. Jinner in P7 then, Rocket League in P8 then in the Williams then, Hungry Styles P9 in the Haas then, and Corey Brennan then makes up the top 10 in the bronze standings as it stands, that is, at Portugal, of course, after last week. In the constructors, we've got Kicks out, but then leading the way then with 141 points in. Smithy and Luke then charging away then as it stands. Then Mushroom and Winnie then make up P2 for the Aston Martin outfit. Then they are putting up the fight then, but they are currently on 90 points then, so they are 51 points away from the top of the table in the constructors. Then Haas of Hungry Styles and Mystery then P3 then with 83 points as well. Then so looking to challenge Aston Martin tonight. Then Alpine P4, Williams P5. Then we've got McLaren in P6, Red Bull in P7, Racing Bulls then in P8, then Ferrari and Mercedes P9 and P10 as we round off the constructors there as well then. Cracking stuff indeed. We'll get back to the stream itself so I can see what's going on then. Evening all from Jinner then. Is it a wet race, says Dynamo Dan? I have no idea. I can't tell. It looks like it might be raining in qualifying already then, actually. That is why we've got so many drivers out on track so quickly, and that is, yes, my goodness me then, I think it's already started to spit here in Imola then for the start of the qualifying, I should say. So there's going to be a very short, sharp and qualifying attempt, I think, in this one because, well, if the rain starts to fall then in the latter stages of this qualifying, of course, those on the soft compound tyres now then will be setting the precedent at the beginning of this session then. Let's go, Dan says Eben as well. Then Serious Mushroom said rain and rain. Great evening. Great and evening all. Good luck bronze from Kiki as well then. Good stuff indeed. Right then, who have we got then crossing the line first is the question. DeCanco then is not going to be crossing the line first. He's going to be starting off a lap very soon then. Same for Dynamo Dan and his teammate Real Ashton heading through into, oh my goodness me, then Jinner all over the curves then, but has managed to keep it valid then as we go through there. And there's a Red Bull then trying to get out of the way, I think, just about. Good stuff. And let's see what Jinner can do then in the first attempt at qualifying. Then we're going through into the first and now the second of the revatzas. Luke's done a 15.279 to start ourselves on the way the championship leader. Then here comes Jinner. Jinner's done a 15.219 then to put himself on pole position as well. Here, that's fantastic stuff indeed. Let's have a see. Corey's done a 16.3, then puts himself P3 for the time being. But of course, there's still drivers that, oh my goodness me, what's I don't know if Jinner has realised. Jinner has not realised, and there, oh goodness me, that is dangerous. So there's a Red Bull then spinning off as well. Then that's, who is that then? Is that Dynamo Dan, or is Dynamo Dan had an issue then at the second revat? Oh, so not second revat, sorry, the first chicane. And oh my God, then, oh, that was dangerous. That was dangerous. Let's just say the least. Then Mr. Elite is starting off a lap then as well. Then where is the next couple of cars to come through? And I think it's Gaming Infinity. Unfortunately, is time then replacing Vintage for tonight then for the reserve appearances. Umabra then has done an 18.7, puts himself P5. Then where is the second Mercedes? I think that's IRS then starting off a lap as well. Then Casey, no, it's not Casey, it's his teammate DeCanco crossing the line. Then P4 for DeCanco, a 16.2, puts himself on the second row of the grid. And oh dear, he's decided to drive into the grass there as well then. Good stuff indeed. Well, what an epic start so far in qualifying. Then Rocket Lee, then not Rocket Lee, sorry, Real Ashton. Goodness me, has got himself up into P6. Then third row of the grid for Real Ashton, and that's going to be a pretty impressive start if he can keep hold of it. That is Smithy Almighty. Then it's not Smithy Almighty. Then where is Luke? Luke is back in the pit lane. So never mind. Then ignore that. Then Corey then is crossed the line. Then P4 then displaces DeCanco down to P5, and Jinner is into the pits as well. Then where is the next? Where is the next Ferrari? We say here is the next. Oh, he's just starting a lap. Then I thought he was going to cross the line and do a fantastic performance. Rocket Lee has done a fantastic performance. Then he's on the front row of the grid down to 25, a 15.260. I'm not sure where I keep getting 25s from, but maybe I'm just too slow. Then Dan is on a lap as well. Then he's up into P4. Mr. Lee up into P6. Then with the Haas. Then good stuff indeed. Then splitting the in a bit of a sandwich. Then is DeCanco then with the Haas pairing as Styles then is P8 as well. Then good stuff indeed. Gaming Infinity back out on circuit, but unfortunately invalidating again. Then we'll have to go back round on another attempt as well. Then oh dear, we've got all sorts of shenanigans here as well. Then Smithy and not quite sure what is going on. Then and down this main straight. Then there's three of them Three of them, it looks like, then, as we got, I think that's Astra John as well, then, yeah, so Astra John, Smithy, and IRS, then, all flying through the lap, then, at very close proximity as well, let's just say, as we head through, then, into the, well, only in the first stages of qualifying, then only the first third of qualifying is completed now, but it looks like it's going to get worse and worse in terms of the weather conditions. The drivers then are scrambling to get themselves a fantastic time on the board, then, in these slightly dry conditions, although it is starting to rain here as well, then. And yes, now going into Sector 2, this is where having the cars around you so close proximity is going to be a bit of a problem, I think. And I'm not quite sure if the planning of the strategist then went very well then on this occasion. Then, but yeah, Smithy then is being towed along really by IRS at the moment. But I think Smithy would look to get himself past that Mercedes if he could then. But unfortunately, it's not race conditions; it's qualifying conditions, and IRS is on a lap here as we head down the hill. And my goodness me, Smithy's almost pushing him through. Then Real Ashton has retired in the pit lane, and he is done and dusted in qualifying. He thinks it's too wet then maybe to go back out there again. Then Smithy then pushing the Mercedes to the line, it looks like here, but they crossed the line. Then Smithy has gone P11, then Astra John's gone P8 then as well. Then they're all in this queue, and my goodness me, then that is dodgy stuff indeed, let's just say that. Gaming Infinity back out on circuit, then back out on a lap as well. Then Winnie also on a lap, then going through Tozer. And very good stuff indeed. And evening all from Brabbit as well then. Dynamo Dan's got the wrong setup on them. Good stuff indeed. Evening from Slippery Tune as well then. Good luck to the lads as well then. A mushroom for the win, says Brabbit. Then Slippery Tune, I miss you in bronze. You belong in bronze. And unfortunately, you haven't raced in bronze, which is a big shame indeed. But hopefully one day we'll get the tuner back in the racing seat. Then here comes Winnie then through the final chicane. Then he's done that very nicely indeed. Then it looked like he was very close to the track limits there as well then. But on the limit then, and has got himself through very nicely indeed. And now down towards the first Ravazza. Then let's see where the Aston Martin can go. Then we haven't seen Sirius Mushroom out on track. So, he's then validated going through the second Ravazza there, has Winnie. Then unfortunately that's cost him his lap time there, and unfortunately for the Aston Martin driver, then both Aston Martins stranded in the pit lane. And oh dear, Gaming Infinity's invalidated again as well, coming through then into the same part of the circuit as well. Then I think then Smithy Almighty then is coming back around. Then I think Smithy Almighty is coming back into the pit lane here, but yes he is then. So that's that. Then Ginger Age has done a 16.6, puts himself P9 then. Fantastic from Ginger Age, and he is storming along then in the Racing Bulls. Then of course a sort of a home Grand Prix then for the Racing Bull team. Then we'll have to wait and see what Ginger Age and Jake the Slayer can do then here, as well as the Ferraris of course then in their home Grand Prix as well then. But there we are. Right then, where is we've had a problem then. It's Gaming Infinity off the circuit then. Where is Jinner? Jinner is coming across the line then to try and improve on his current time. Then it is an improvement on his current time by almost 1.5 tenths of a second then. No, that's terrible, but no, it was good enough then for a 15.0. Then puts himself on pole, cements his place in pole position I should say then, by just under I should say then 2 tenths of a second to Rocket Lee. Then Rocket Lee back out on circuit now, and Jinner then is looking pretty impressive here as well as it stands in this qualifying session then. Although the rain has been falling, it hasn't been falling hard enough then to slow down the pace then on the soft compound tyres, it doesn't look like. There we go then. So yes, thank you very much. And Brabbit said, never say never. There's always a time for the comeback as well, indeed. So yes, there is. And Jinner then has got himself a fantastic comeback and onto pole position once again. Then we'll have to wait and see then if anyone can rival him. Can Ginger Age rival him though is the question then. Yes, he can. Well, he can't. Unfortunately, he's improved, but he stays P9 for the time being. And my goodness me, there is a lot of lag going on there. So whether that's me, Ginger Age, or just the lobby itself, then that is fantastic stuff indeed. Then I think it hopefully is just me, because it seems like it's happening to quite a few drivers out there as well then. But Hungry Stars then is on a lap then, flying through into Aqua Minerale as well then. Kamara Racers then, €10 from Kamara Racers evening as well then, to you sir, and hello all racers, good luck. Bronze as well then from Kamara Racer, fantastic stuff indeed. And thank you very much Kamara Racer then for the very kind and very generous donation as well then to ALR of course. Dynamo Dan then P10 then is displaced, Ginger Age down to P11 as well. Then here comes Styles down towards the first Ravazza. Let's see if that has then, it's gone a bit dirty then, that has, with a bit of dust and dirt all kicked up over it as well as you go through the lap then. Here comes Styles then up to the line then. What's it going to be for Styles then? It's an improvement by half a second, puts himself P8 then in the hash then, right behind his teammate as well then. Good stuff indeed. Very good stuff indeed. Then Luke is about to start off another lap. Then where is the Ferrari? Then Casey up into P6. Then fantastic stuff indeed from Casey. Then he's flying out there. Dukanko then about to start off a lap as well. Then Dynamo Dan coming back into the pit lane, I think, then to finish off his second attempt, I think that is. But of course, he's got time to go back out again. Then whether the rain will start to fall then to make it even more treacherous. So I think Dynamo Dan has fueled up and got some battery harvested then to go again here. And I think this is very, very wise indeed then, because of course the weather conditions then are not looking too favourable at the moment. Then if they start to change in the next lap or so, then potentially that will be the end of qualifying even, because it will be too wet to improve on the soft compound tyres, that is. Gaming Infinity then is back out on circuit. Then Serious Mushroom is on the lap as well, and we'll stay on board then with Dynamo Dan, I think, because he's the next man on cross the... No, he's not. He's going to be is right behind then. Right behind is this man is Dukanko then. Dukanko coming up the hill then into sector 2, I should say, then heading through down towards Aqua Minerale. Of course, it's going to be very aptly named if it starts to rain very, very quickly indeed, because that part of the circuit, I would imagine, gets flooded very quickly indeed as well then. So there we are, heading up the hill then back towards the final chicane then for Dukanko then on his second attempt. Then can he improve on P9, then flying through the chicane then very nicely indeed, all going a bit wide then, but has got the momentum very nicely indeed as well. Then heading down the hill now towards the first Ravazza. Then final 2 corners coming up then for the Ferrari then at their home one of their home Grand Prix, I should say, then through the first Ravazza. Then looked a bit wide then as we go into the final corner then for Dukanko. Then he's harvesting energy and he's coming back in the pit lane. He's abandoned his lap time. Very good stuff. Dynamo Dan has invalidated his lap time as well. Then so coming back to the pit. Then Corey is starting off a lap now as well. Then for P5 then in Williams currently. Where is the rest of the field? We must ask. Then here comes Serious Mushroom. Then Serious Mushroom is storming up to P13 at 16.7 then for Mushroom. Puts himself on the map then in the first attempt of qualifying for the Aston Martins, and unfortunately for winning then he's still in the pit lane, and unfortunately hasn't been able to get himself back out after that invalidated attempt then as well, then going through into the earlier stages of qualifying as well then. So there we are then. Real Ashley said just get Preston North End game on. Why DNF early? Why I DNF early, says what? Right, okay. Well, not quite sure what's going on there for Real Aston then. But, Incredible comes, says Brabbit then. Unfortunately, you should have heard Ginger Age the other night. It was much better then. Smithy Almighty then has not improved then on P14, I don't think. Unfortunately for Smithy Almighty, then he needs to try and help his teammate out then in terms of the constructors extending their lead in the standings as well. Then had to go start a quali. Rain says Slayer, sorry, shoot, says Slayer as well then. Well, I don't think it's not gone too bad, to be fair. I don't think Luke has retired from the session and he's not going to be able to improve on P3 then as it stands then. But yeah, I don't think it's not too bad out there at the moment. It hasn't changed too much, let's just say that then, in the first few knockings of the session. Then, although a few people then retiring earlier in the pit lane here might indicate that the rain is starting to fall a bit heavier here as well. Then Astra John, sorry, going through the final chicane. Then can he finish off this lap? Then can he improve on P10 as it stands as well? We'll find out very shortly. And here he comes then into the first Ravazza, then flying through then as Jenner is retired as well then from pole position, and that's a bit wide then, but he's kept it within track limits there as well. Then has Astra John. Then let's see what he can do up to the line, and what's it going to be then for the second McLaren? Then it's a 16.5. He has not improved on his time, unfortunately, then, so stays in P10 then for the time being. And then Smithy coming back into the pit lane, I think will be done and dusted as well. There's quite a few drivers out on track then, but they're all on soft compound tyres as far as I can tell. Yes, they are. They're all on soft compound tyres, but the rain seems to have started to fall a bit heavier now, with a few more people retiring then from the qualifying, albeit at the top of the order then. Yes, we'll have to wait and see. Right then, where is Dan Dan? Dan Dan has invalidated his time as well then, so he's going to be going around again then, I think, is the Alpine. He has got enough battery harvested then to go again, then off he goes, heading down the main straight then with some DRS that's still enabled, of course, then, so that's a good indicator as well then. DRS still enabled then down this long main straight then as we head into the first chicane then, and that's going to be quite good indeed then for those who have carried on. Then Winnie has retired in the pit lane, I think then, so he is done and dusted already then, and no time then for Winnie. Ginger Age is retired in the pit lane as well then, so I think he's already considered that the rain is too hard, or falling too hard I should say then, to be able to go out there and improve on another set of soft compound tyres here. So, but there's still a few drivers attempting to improve as well then. Where is Styles then? Styles then starting a lap, then Mr. Elite then starting off another lap as well then, for the other Haas then. Where's the McLaren then? Astra John then is having a few, oh dear, that snappy back end, let's just say that then. then. Where is IRS then? IRS around the final corner, then can he improve then on his current 18.4? Then here he comes then up to the line, it's a 17.6, but he stays P16 for the time being, but he has improved to get himself into the upper echelons then. In terms of time as well, that is good stuff indeed. Then Jake the Slayer is back out on circuit as well. Then there's a Haas who's had an issue somewhere, and that is Mr. Elite then, who has had an issue somewhere through the first chicane, it looks like. Where is the Red Bull then? It's Dynamo Dan starting off another lap as well here. Where is the next Mercedes as well? We'll come back to that because Umabro then coming through the final couple of corners, and he's being chased by Styles as well here, it looks like. Heading to the line then for Umabro. Then I think the final attempt, then Styles back in the pit lane. Here comes Umabro, then he stays in P17 as well. Then Mercedes then have improved their times quite substantially then as well then in their final attempts in qualifying here, but unfortunately not changing the position as well at this stage of qualifying. Here comes Gaming Infinity then to get himself a time on the board then. This time it's valid, and here he comes then in the Alpine then up to P15, then displacing Real Ashton, displacing the Mercedes pair then down to the down the order I should say, then Real Gaming Infinity up into P15 for the Alpine. Great stuff indeed. Mr. Elite, I think, has had an issue. Then he's, unfortunately has invalidated his time then, so he's not going to be able to improve. Then Dynamo Dan coming through Aqua Minerale as well. Then where is Slayer? Then Slayer is coming down towards the first Ravazza there, but I think he's just trying to get himself out of the way then of the Mercedes. Then coming back into the pit lane. Then here comes Slayer. Then he's about to start off a lap. I think then he's coming back into the pit lane. Is Slayer then? Oh, goodness me! And yes, that's it. Aborted then for Slayer as well. Then there's a few drivers then unfortunately not getting themselves out in time then to get themselves a time on the board here in qualifying. The likes of Winnie and Slayer then as well. Then here comes Dynamo Dan. Then can he improve then on P11? Then here he comes up to the line. Then this is the final attempt, I think, in qualifying. Then he's up into, he stays P11, I should say. Then goodness me. And there we are then. That is qualifying, I think, sorted then for bronze then. We have just about got themselves a tick down to the end of the timer now. Everyone's still in the pit lane as it stands then, and a few drivers then just getting themselves back in the box at the moment as well then. But that is qualifying, I think, then. And there we are then. Ginna then is pole position then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix then for the McLaren. Then fantastic stuff indeed. Rocket Lee on the front row in the Williams then as well. Then fantastic as well. Luke then the championship leader, then P3, then Dan the championship contender then in P4. Fantastic stuff indeed. Then Dynamo Dan, of course, a championship contender in his own right as well then, but unfortunately down in P11 then at the start of this Grand Prix with the difficult qualifying in these difficult and strange situations and strange weather conditions, I suppose you could say. Tuner says Mushroom, then the rain, something me, says Styles. That's why DNF they put in the game on then. Well, Real Ashton, if you instead of just DNFing, you can just put the you can just pause the game and then get the game on and then carry on racing. Got no feeling in controller, says Styles then, and Mushroom says Tuner as well then. Good stuff indeed. Right, there we go then, qualifying done and dusted now, and that is it then. We are finished then here in Imola then for the grid lineup, that is. Hopefully we'll see what it's going to be like then in the race itself, but we will have to go through the order quickly before that. And yes, the rain definitely started to fall a bit heavier than in that qualifying session, but it wasn't too bad. I think DRS was still enabled then at the end of that Grand Prix at the end of that qualifying. Ginna then pole position, Rocket Lee P2, Luke P3, Dan P4, then Corey P5 as well, then good stuff. And Casey then with a fantastic qualifying P6, then Mr. Elite in P7, then Styles then in P8, then Dukanko, in P9, Astra John in P10, Dynamo Dan P11, then Ginger Age P12, Serious Mushroom P13, Smithy Almighty P14, Gaming Infinity P15, Real Ashton P16, both the Mercedes P17 and P18 respectively. Then Winnie then and Jake the Slayer didn't get a time on the board, unfortunately. There we are then. We will run through the order then as we get ourselves started for the formation lap. Then a quick word from our lovely sponsors and we'll be back very shortly. Right, then here we go then. We are just about to get ourselves set and underway then, just in time that was as well then. Fantastic. For the formation lap, that is. It looks nice and dry out there as well then for the start of the Grand Prix at least. At least that is. We'll have to wait and see that if it's going to hold up then for the rest of the race. But 32 laps of action then to unfold here in Imola as well. Then we will switch on to the situations then for all the drivers on track tonight. And hopefully, I'm not sure if Jake the Slayer got himself in the car then. No, he didn't then, unfortunately. So I'm not quite sure what is going on there for Jake the Slayer then, but it seems to be having some sort of issue. And there we are then. Brilliant stuff indeed then. Gina leads the way then, of course, pole position and medium compound tyres for the whole of the field, apart from two. Can you spot the two? That is the question then. Yes, you can spot the two then. It's IRS then P17 and Umabro P18 then on the hard compound tyres. So they're going to go for a very long, well, a longer first stint, let's just say, and hope that they can have some better pace then on the medium compound tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix. We'll wait and see how it unfolds here tonight then, but we'll find out then in 32 laps time or so. 33 if you count the formation lap, but there we are. So the majority of the field then, or 18 of the field then on the medium compound tyres then, they will be the faster tyre then, especially in the first few laps of this Grand Prix. You would hazard a guess that is, but of course we'll have to wait and see how the race unfolds in front of our very eyes. I can't take control of the car. Yes, because you left the session then before the, well, after it finished technically, and then before the races started. So hopefully, as both the Hasses have disqualified themselves, that's good stuff. Right then, right there we are then. As we, yes, of course. So Jake the Slayer then was not in the session, and that's why he can't take control. But hopefully, it will be sorted out then. Or will be able to sort itself out then at the beginning of the Grand Prix itself then. Once everyone has got themselves lined up on the grid, we will crack on then in a moment's time then, just waiting for everyone to get themselves lined up then in their grid slots. And we can then get those 5 red lights on here in Imola then for the final time then for round 6 then in ALR, that is. Of course, gold has completed it on Sunday then. Silver has completed it yesterday then. This is time for bronze to shine now as well then. Here we are. 5 red lights are on here in the Emilia-Romagna province then, and the 5 red lights are out then, and away we go for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix then for bronze season 9. A good start then, it looks like, for Rocket Lee. And no, he's not. He's under pressure from Luke then in towards turn 1 then. It's going to get very dicey indeed around here then as we go flying into the first chicane. Then is there going to be any action then as we go side by side through here then? Oh my goodness me, I think the top of the order they got themselves through very nicely indeed then. Rocket Lee, not Rocket Lee, sorry, Mr. Lee and Casey then battling side by side into the second chicane. Then Casey's round the outside, he's got the move. I think he has anyway. Good stuff indeed. Oh dear, there's a McLaren and a Haas off there. There's a Haas and the McLaren of Astra John and Styles, I think it is, then going through into Tozer now, and they're carrying on their fight as well then. Oh my goodness me, that was wow, chaotic, just to say the least, that is. Styles and Astra John then, I think they had their wheels caught between each other then as well, then heading off the circuit at the exit of the second chicane then. That I think that was the only incident then in the first few corners at least. So it seems like everyone's got themselves through unscathed, apart from that minor blip, let's just say then, as we go through. Then the Aston Martins then are all over the back of each other then as well, as we go through then into the final chicane, then heading down the hill towards the first Ravazza. Then quite a few position changes as we go through then, as we go up the order then, as we head into the second lap now. Gina leads the way then almost by a second then to Luke then, who's going to have some use some power then down the straight. Then Gina sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, but of course that was the first lap of the Grand Prix, so technically the race leader, or whoever crosses the line first at the end of lap 1 is the race leader, is the fastest lap, I should say. But there we are. That's the way it works. Rocket Lee then into the second chicane, then first chicane then is right behind Luke. Dan then has held position. Same for Corey, same for Casey, same for Mr. Elite. Then as we fly through, then Ducanco's up a place as well into P8. Then Ginger Rage has gained 3 places then into the top 9 then for Ginger Rage, and he is flying along then. Dynamo Dan then up into the top 10 as well. Then he's got himself a place then as well. Then Smithy Almighty then is up 3 places. Gaming Infinity up 3 places as well. Then Winnie's gained 5 from P19. My goodness me, then Jake the Slayer's up 4 as well then. Unfortunately, Hungry Styles then has lost 9 places. Then Real Aston's dropped down 3 as well then, and Astra John has dropped down 10 as well then after that difficult start then between, well, had that sort of, well, it wasn't a collision really, was it? It was just sort of catching together then between the McLaren and the Haas. And that, oh dear, as he's gone into the back then, I feel Real Ashton, I think, going up the hill then towards Aquamin. Mr. Elite, the first penalty of the evening then for the Haas driver. Then, of course, we might see quite a few penalties around here then, as we've seen the nature of the track. Then, unfortunately, just the problem we've got with the game is we don't have a medium setting, really, do we? We have strict or regular then, and of course, it's a bit too lenient on regular, which is why we have to run the strict one. Luke then has got the fastest lap of the race. Then, of course, regaining that DRS now into. Oh my goodness, he's going to go for the lead. I thought he was going to go for a dive then, but he's a bit too far back. Then Rocket Lee then holding station, I should say, just about. Then Mr. Elite has gone round the outside of Casey then, but he's going to slow the progress then through the second part of the chicane. But Mr. Elite holds on to P6 there as well. Then Casey down to P7. Then Dynamo down up into P8. Then passing to Kanko. There's all sorts of gaggles of cars going through into the second chicane then, and Ginger Ray almost in the back of Casey's Kanko, sorry, I should say, then in towards Tozer now. And my goodness me, then it's action packed. Then look at this train form, and then there's an Aston Martin, there's an Alpine in that fight as well. Then Winnie and Sirius Mushroom switch places, I think, there as well. Then there's small contact then between Ginger Age and Smithy. Then as Smithy's gone off the circuit, then Ginger Age getting his elbows out and saying no. None of that, please. And Ginger Age is very much on his mission then as well, then to try and get himself some more points. Then, of course, he's already scored some points in this season, with points going down to 15th as well then for bronze in the drivers and the constructors, of course. So that is what's going on. Oh dear, there's a problem then for IRS then at the final chicane. Then spun the car slightly as well, then got himself back underway quickly enough though, but he's lost out then to both his teammate and Real Ashton as well. Oh dear, that's not good news then. IRS then get himself back underway, but he has got himself back underway quickly enough then, of course, on the hard compound tyres. We might see him come back later on in this race. Then Umaro picked up the second penalty of the evening. Luke is going for the lead. Luke is going for the lead. Then goodness me. Then oh dear, that was getting dicey indeed as well then. And wow, they've made it through then unscathed. Then Luke takes the lead of the Grand Prix. Jenna down to P2, then of course leading the Grand Prix from pole position then was Jenna until that moment as well. Then Luke now takes the lead, then he's up 2 places then from P3, then Rocket Lee, then almost into the back of Jenna, then into Tozer, and now Dan is sniffing around as well. Then Corey then is coming with them as well. The top 5 are starting to split away. Then Mr. Elite is 1.8 seconds back then, and Casey now is on his case as well then, and Dynamo Dan is 2 seconds behind them. So there's a bit of a split then between these two here from the top of the order then and from the rest of the field as well. Then heading up the hill then. Oh dear, Casey's gone wide then, and I think that was a bit of unsettled then. He was unsettled by the Haas, that back end of the Haas stepping out then at Aqua Minerale, and that unsettled the Ferrari then going through the second part of the corner as well. Then goodness me, he's all over the back of the Haas as well. Then we'll come back to that then, because this is the battle for the race lead. Then Ginner's going to try and fight back for the P1 position, is he, on lap 5 then very shortly. And well, like I said, I hope Slayer is back in the car. Yes, he is back in the car. Good stuff indeed. Here comes Jinder then on the attack then. Let's see if he's going to try and take that lead back then. I think he's going to go for it. And I think Rocket Lee is going to rocket through as well. Then yes, he is then back up into P2 for Rocket Lee then. So now it's status quo as we were then in the top 7 then. So all the top 7 now status quo from the start of the race then 5 laps ago now, which is quite a long time ago in my eyes. But to be fair, the race has flown by in this race in the opening stages. Of course, it's been very frantic indeed, very quick indeed then from bronze as we go into Tozer then for the 5th time now as well. Then fantastic stuff indeed in the top of the order then, where is Mr. Elite? He's been passed by Casey, then Casey up into P6, then displacing the Haas down to P7, then Winnie and Smithy, now fighting. And oh dear, what's going on then as we go into sector 2 then? I think that's probably not an overtaking place then for Winnie, but he has, he's going to get a very good exit then as well then. But Smithy holding on to the position for the time being into Aqua Minerale, and yes, he has kept hold of the position as well then. Good stuff indeed. Good racing then. Fantastic stuff indeed from bronze as well so far. And yeah, it's been pretty epic stuff indeed as well so far. Unfortunately for Corey, he's dropped out of that DRS window of the top 4. Now, what's happened there to Corey? Maybe he had a mistake somewhere then in sector 2 then. But unfortunately, he might have got himself back in actually, which is very good timing if he did. But has he? No, he hasn't got DRS then, unfortunately. So Corey's dropped out of that 1 second window. Then we've got more action then as Rocket League goes for the lead of the Grand Prix then. And Luke, is he going to try and mount a charge for that P2 position on Jinner? Then not quite. Then Jinner then with no DRS, of course, then being the leader then into the final corner. And Rocket League then has taken the lead of the Grand Prix then away from the McLaren of Jinner then, and the kick Sauber of Luke, I should say, as well then. So good stuff indeed then. Both these top 4 are now in their fight of their own then for the race lead as well. Then the race win victory, or the victory I should say then, potentially. Then Corey then trying to get himself back in contention. Then Mr. Elite and Casey are actually closing in here at this stage. And this could be pretty promising. Then potentially, if the leaders are battling, then that could bring the rest of the field back in. Then IRS unfortunately picked up a penalty. There's quite a few penalties rolling in already then on lap 6 so far as we head into Aqua Minerale once again then. But Rocket League then takes the lead. Then Gaming Infinity's picked up another penalty as well. And then that's 5 then across the order then as it stands. But so far, it has been pretty good stuff indeed to watch as well. Then Corey, unfortunately, has dropped off the back now, and he's picked up a 3-second penalty as well. Then for his troubles as well, then that is going to be dangerous stuff indeed. Then Mr. Elite is pushing hard then to try and get himself within that DRS range as well. Then of the top 5, but not quite at this stage. I think Corey's got himself back in though, which is going to be good news indeed for the Williams driver. Then if he can hold on to it, though, unfortunately at the expense of that penalty as well. I think Rocket Lee has rocketed into the lead of the Grand Prix then, and he's got the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as well there. Heading into the first chicane, he's going to hold on to his lead as well then ahead of Jinner for the time being. Then is very deep on the brakes then, unfortunately for Rocket League. That's going to compromise his second part of the chicane as well then. Winnie has got himself past Smithy, has he? Yes, he has then as we go into the first chicane as well. Then there's all sorts of things going on here. And Ginger Ray, oh my goodness me, there's an Alpine going slowly then, and Winnie's gone right round the outside of him as well. Then Smithy trying to go for it as well as we go into the, oh, there's contact then, and Smithy then, as I think, oh, we're good. Ginger Ray's got a penalty as well. The Gaming Infinity kept his nose in there, I think it was. And yes, unfortunately didn't pay off then as Rocket League picks up a penalty as well. And goodness me, the penalty is starting to roll in now. So I'm not sure that's the best way to show your frustration, especially heading into Sector 2 of Aqua Minerale then to start weaving around. But it doesn't matter then because the penalties will be rolling in then, as we've already seen then in this lap. Then there's quite a few penalties rolling in. So there we go then. Jinner's picked up a penalty as well there. So there we go. It is a penalty-inducing Grand Prix, let's just say that there. But we are used to that then after the last couple of days. Mr. Elite's got himself in contention there with that DRS then on Corey Brennan then. Mr. Elite then on a charge as it stands as well then. And let's see if he can get himself into a bit more of a fight then as well with the top of the order as well as we go through this race then. Lap 8 then off 32, we're at the quarter waypoint then. Winnie's picked up a 3-second penalty as well then. My goodness me then, Jinner takes the lead of the Grand Prix, heading round the outside of Rocket League then into the first chicane then. Rocket League down to P2, but he's in a good spot then as it stands then. Same for Luke then, same for Dan as well then. Corey's dropped 2 seconds then to the rest of the pack then. Unfortunately for Corey then, he must have had some sort of issue somewhere on the last lap then, as Mr. Elite now all over the back of him as well here. And although he's picked on another penalty as Mr. Elite, unfortunately though, as you go through into the second chicane then. Casey then is 1.5 seconds back, unfortunately has dropped off after battling then with Mr. Elite. Then he's had to yield then to the Haas then, and now has lost out. Dynamo Dan now all over the back of the Ferrari then, heading into Sector 2 here as well then. It's going to get dicey indeed as well then. Good stuff. DeCanker then leads the rest of the train then as well then. Leads another train, I should say, then with Ginger Age, Winnie, Smithy, Almighty, Hungry Stars, Serious Mushroom all in the pack right behind P9 at the moment in this Ferrari, then trying to hold on for some big points then for the Ferrari team at their one of their home Grand Prix. And very nicely done then through the chicane, very well done indeed actually, going over the bump. And there we go then, heading on to lap 9 momentarily now as well. Then here comes Rocket League then. Can Rocket League mount a charge then for the race lead once again then? DRS still available of course. And heading down the main straight, then we go. Rocket Lee is closing, then he's got to go to the right hand side. There's not enough space there, and Rocket Lee has taken the lead of the Grand Prix then. Yes, he has then. I'm not quite sure Jinner then was not quite sure if Jinner just didn't see him then, or if he was trying to defend then, but it was unfortunately not a great opportunity to try and defend really, because it was kind of pointless. Then Jinner was Rocket Lee was going to fly past with the DRS then. Nonetheless then Corey picks up a penalty as well then. Unfortunately then there's quite a few penalties rolling in then. But of course, like we were saying then, of course, to all bronze drivers and to silver and gold drivers before the races, as well as there's contact between the top two, and like I was saying, between the top of the order then as we go through. I'll come back to that then. Let's just come back to that then. Rocket League then has yielded then to Jinner. Then Jinner has got himself back in the race lead. Of course, these two battling then has now held up the two behind then, and potentially could bring Corey back into the fight as well if they carry on then the way they've been going in on this lap for sure. But there we are then. We're flying through now. Dynamo Dan's got himself up into P7, then passing Casey Jennett, then Jake Sayers pick up the penalty as well. Then goodness me, there's penalties rolling in all over the place now. Like I was saying, then if you feel you got an unfair warning, an unfair penalty, then make sure you record the race firstly, because we need to see the warnings themselves when you pick them up. But also record and clip up your race director. Then at the end of the race, then you'll see that in the classification screen. You will see the in the classification screen at the very end of the race when you're looking at the top the rest of the order. Ginger Rage is in the pit lane. Ginger Rage very early stop then for the Racing Bull. Then when you get the race director, then clip up all of your penalties, then go through every single lap of your warnings as well, then and then show that in the ticket as well, then, because that will be very important indeed to get your penalties removed. And there we go then. So yeah, of course, like I said, we are very familiar with this circuit now, and it seems like that's where the penalties are coming from then. Ginger Rage hard compound tyres then going on at the Racing Bull now, and here's the first of the scheduled stops as it stands, and away he goes then out of the pit lane. Now he's going to be down in P20 then, but of course on the freshest tyres of the field then as we get ourselves going. Not sure if he got himself off. Yeah, he did get himself. Did he get himself off? Goodness me, I'm not quite sure, but he's got himself on a set of hard compound tyres, and away he goes. Very good stuff indeed. Right then, cracking on now into the next phase then. Will we see some more pit stops then? Has Ginger Rage called the strategy then? Has he started to maybe start a windfall of pit stops then for those on the medium compound tyres? Of course, 18 drivers started on the mediums compared to the hard compound tyres, which are both the Mercedes. So we'll have to wait and see then if they will start to peel off into the pit lane then. Not quite then, not at the end of lap 10 then for the top 4, top 5, top 6 then as it stands in. Dynamo down, note he's not coming into the pit lane. There's yellow flags out there for an Alpine. I think that's Gaming Infinity's had an issue somewhere. Rocket Lee has been passed by Ginner then into the first chicane, then Ginner takes the lead back. IRS picks up a penalty as well then as we go through then. Ginger Rage has got a penalty as well then, my goodness me. What a naughty boy. Smithy's got himself past the Kanko into the first chicane again. I think Smithy then is Smithy's on a charge then, but he's angering a few drivers around him. Then his Astrodron has angered Jake the Slayer going through into the first chicane as well. Same place, same time. And I think the Mercedes will switch places then as well. Then some team orders then maybe down in the Mercedes garage then. But yes, I think yeah, a few drivers then they've taken the very late opportunities. Let's just say then into the first chicane with of course the overspeed with DRS as well. Then of course the other driver then ahead of him usually doesn't have the DRS, does he? So that is why you've got some overspeed then for the person right behind. Rocket Lee is right behind Ginner then into the final chicane. Then he's got Luke right behind him as well. Then Dan is just about right behind as well. Then so the top 4 then are lying astern then into lap 11. Will we see some pit activity now as well? Then heading into the first Ravat. So then this is where you might start to think about diving into the pit lane. And here comes the second Ravat. And then it's now time to do it or die. Not die then, just carry on really in this race then. But they're carrying on the top 2. Then Luke carries on as well. Then Dan is calling it into the pit lane. Then goes Dan. Very good stuff indeed. Then into the pits goes Corey Brennan as well. Then Dynamo Dan carries on as well. And we will see what happens then next. Then of course I think Dan is on for a very good strategic call here as well. Then if he goes onto the hard compound tyres as well, then yes he does, and out he goes as well. Then where will he come out in the rest of the order is the question then, as we got Ginner and Rocket Lee then switching places as well. Then once again these two carrying on their fight. Then Dan, where is Dan? Then we'll find out. Corey's got a 3-second motor then as well, then coming through. Then Dan coming out of the pit lane ahead of Real Ashton, just about. Then yes he will be ahead of the Red Bull then as well. They're coming out in P17. Gaming Infinity into the pits as well. Then unfortunately Gaming Infinity then is they're calling it a day then on the medium compound tyres as well. Then, but he's had a few issues then on those on the final laps of this stint as well. Then Rocket Lee almost pushing Ginner through Aqua Minerale then as well. Then on lap 12 then I think we might see some more stops coming now on this lap as well here. But at the moment then only Ginger Rage, Dan and Gaming Infinity then have made a scheduled stop in this race. So that is interesting stuff indeed. Then we'll have to wait and see how they're going to fare then in this Grand Prix as well. Then heading through then into the first of the Ravatsas once again. Then Rocket Lee then all over the back of Ginger then as we go into the second Ravatsa as well. Then this is it. This might be the call to come into the pit lane. Then, and Luke is coming into the pit lane. Then he's calling it a day. Then is Luke. Then he's got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Then Luke, goodness me, that is going to be very very bad indeed for the championship leader. Then into the pits comes Corey Dan and Mr. Elite as well. Then lots more pit activity. Both the Ferraris are pitted as well. Then goodness me, that is terrible news indeed for DeCanco, who's going to have to double stack behind his teammate here as well. Then my goodness me, there's no team communications down at Ferrari then, as it obviously isn't. But there we are. Then Luke then coming out of the pit lane. Where will Dan be? Then we'll come back to that because Dan coming through then is going to be ahead of Luke. Then he's got himself past, and the undercut has worked very nicely indeed for Dan. Then he's got himself into a net lead of the Grand Prix, I think there. He has done, yes, actually. He has done a very, very good job indeed then of getting himself up into the race lead. Then has Dan then fantastic stuff indeed. Rocket Lee and Jinner. Rocket Lee's off the circuit there and trying to get himself back underway. Then he has got himself back underway now. But Rocket Lee then seems to have had an issue then with Jinner then as well. They're coming through Aqua Minerale as well now. And oh dear, as Rocket Lee's got a 3-second penalty as well for his troubles. Rocket Lee then getting himself back underway quickly enough. Then Dan then is now in the, I think he's in a net race lead actually, because of course there's quite a lot of pit activity to come then further ahead then of course he's going to catch up to Slayer. He's going to catch up to the both of the Mercedes as well then, and get them to get past them quickly enough then as well. Heading into the final chicane then, Dan is all over the back of Slayer, and Slayer's already let him through as well then as we go through then onto the track then, and Corey Brennan's got a 3-second penalty. Serious Russian pick up a penalty as well. Then into the pits comes the rest of the field predominantly. Jinner then carries on. Rocket Lee then into the box then has called it a day then on the medium compound tyres. Astrotron has also carried on, so both from the McLarens then extending the stint then as well here. Rocket Lee is out ahead. No, he's not. Where is Dan? Dan coming through then into P5, who has pitted as well. Then Rocket Lee then down behind Luke, I think, then, and behind Corey Brennan as it stands. Then he's behind Mr. Elite then and Dynamo down. Then Rocket Lee then out of the way, then out of the pits, I should say. Sorry, in P11 then, but of course that's not a stuck on position, that is, because he's got some more people ahead of him to pit as well. Then Casey then is right behind Rocket Lee now, heading into the second chicane. Then trying to put the pressure on as well. Then it's Ginger Rage right behind these two at the same time. Then Ginger Rage is on a charge. Then is of course on the older tyres now, because of course he has pitted a lap or so early. Then Jake the Slayer then losing the car, then going through into Aqua Minerale as well. Then goodness me, that Red Bull Racing Bull, sorry, goodness me, is struggling out there as well. Then I think he's got damage on the left end plate. Maybe that was just me, but yeah, it seems to be having a few issues then. P20, watch out for the controller from Sean then. Well, he was only P20 because he was making his pit stop. Now he's got himself into contention then with Rocket Lee and Casey Jennett as well then. So he's in a fight now. Is the Ginger Rage? Let's just say that then. Hard compound tyres going on Ginner's car. Where will he come out then in respect to the rest of the order then? Dan is going to try and get himself past both of the Mercedes pair then. Let's see if he can do it is the question. Then Jinner coming out of the pit lane is going to be behind this pair then. We've got Dan now going past then into the first chicane. Then goodness me, it's laid on the brakes indeed then from the Alpine. He's now in a bit of a Mercedes sandwich, and Jinner is out in P5 and just ahead of Corey Brennan for the time being then. So it's another Williams now for Jinner to try and contend with as we go through then into the second half of the race then, the second stint of the race now I should say. So Dan then all over the back of IRS, and IRS of course has yet to pit then. He's leading the Grand Prix as IRS, so a fantastic job indeed then from the Mercedes driver. He's been fantastic in this stint. Of course he is not pitted just yet then, but he's doing a brilliant job then leading the Grand Prix then on lap 15 of lap 32 of course I should say then. So he's got quite a way to go then if he tries to hold on to it, but I think Dan is trying to set his sights on that position as well then. But here comes IRS then through the final chicane then. He's doing a fantastic storming job then to lead this Grand Prix, and very good stuff indeed. Sorry, I should say then from the Alpine team as well. Sorry, from the Mercedes team, I should say then. Heading into the first Ravazza then, of course, on the hard compound tyres then, as Luke's gone around the outside of Umabro and taking that position. Then IRS stays out, but here comes Dan, and Dan now on a charger with some DRS is going to get himself past into the lead of the Grand Prix here with no penalties then so far for Dan. I've probably cursed that now, but there we go. Then heading into the first chicane, Dan will lead the Grand Prix then for the first time then on lap 16 of 32. Brilliant stuff indeed. Winnie and Smithy, then Rocket Lee and Casey as well then are battling away. Then Ginger H has dropped off this fight unfortunately. Then Hungry Styles has passed Mushroom then for P14. Then we've got Corey and Umabra. Then Corey's gone past, oh dear, Umabra then's gone a bit wide, and then he's got himself back underway quickly enough I should say. Corey up into P5 now as well. Then IRS and Luke then switching places. Then we've got Jinner trying to get himself through as well then, and Jinner trying to smuggle his way through then into P3. Then he's got himself through, then passes the Mercedes then for the time being there. But IRS then still doing a good job then. Of course he's not really fighting these guys. He's not on the same strategy as these guys, so he doesn't need to worry too much about letting them go. But of course he wants to try and do his best then in this Grand Prix as well. Then so far it's so good then for IRS. Then he is doing a good job as it stands as well. Of course yet to pit then, but he will have a few more laps to go then on the hard compound tyres, I'd imagine, before he makes his way into the box. Corey then next to try and line up a move as well then, heading into the first Ravazza now as well then. But so far so good then, brilliant stuff. And Bronze has been putting on a fantastic show, I should say. So very well done indeed then to Bronze. Has he got DRS is the question then. I think IRS might have some DRS to play with as well then, as yes he does then. Heading down towards the first turn then. Jinner's got himself up into P2 then. Where is Corey and IRS then? Into the first chicane then. IRS holds on to P4 then. Fantastic stuff indeed. Dynamo down up into P6. Has passed the Umabro. He's passed Mr. Elite then. Umabro trying to get himself, sorry, Mr. Elite trying to get himself past Umabro as well then. Don't stick your nose in there. That's going to be dangerous stuff indeed. There's more yellow flags. I think for Gaming Infinity who's had an issue again then at the exit of the final chicane then. Mr. Elite trying to go around the outside into Tozer. And can he hold the move here? Then it'll be very tight indeed there, but he hasn't been able to get himself through then on the traction then. Umabro still got some pretty good traction there on the Mercedes, even on the old tyres as well then. Heading into Sector 2, sorry, into Aqua Minerale next then is the question. But Umabro then is holding up the Haas then. He's now got Rocket Lee then in the fight as well then, heading into this next complex of corners as well then. I think Rocket Lee might have had a bit of a quick tap then, as Gaming Infinity's retired in the pit lane then. He's out of the race, and the first retirement of this Grand Prix then on lap 17 is Gaming Infinity then out of the race, out of the Grand Prix. But everywhere else it's been pretty fantastic. Corey then 2 seconds off the top 3 then. Dan Dan's been caught then, but of course Dan Dan's got the older tyres as well then at the top 3. You have to wait and see if they can hold on then. Jinner's at the fastest lap of the race then, so far so good then. Luke then is trying to hold on then to the top 2, but he's got some DRS then down towards the first chicane. But here comes Jinner then. Is he going to go for a move then into turn 1? Not quite. That's just not on then from Jinner. And there we go then. That's why it is always a bit of a problem then, as Rocket Lee's off the circuit then somewhere. He's had an issue then. I'm not quite sure with who. Oh dear, that's close indeed. There's a Ferrari, there's a Mercedes then, and Rocket Lee's back on the fight now. And with all that battling into the first chicane, then that has really opened the door, will reopen the door for Rocket Lee to catch back up then, as we go through then into the next part of the circuit then. Oh dear, down the inside goes Rocket Lee then. It's a very late move then on the brakes then, but he's got the move done. He's slowed the car down then. He's got himself ahead of Umabro, and now into P9 as well then. Good stuff indeed then. Casey then his next target then for the Williams driver then. We'll come back to that then. Dynamo down all over the back of IRS then. IRS is sort of a blockade then for Dynamo down at the moment. He's trying to catch up to Corey Brennan then, who's currently on the same strategy then as the Red Bull. The Mercedes of course is not on the same strategy then. Now he's got a good launch and out of the final chicane then. Dan's on Dynamo down up into P5 here, and away he goes then down the hill then. Can he stay within DRS range then of the Williams, though, is the question. I'm not sure he can actually, so maybe IRS can have a bit of a fight back then down the main straight with some DRS then for the Mercedes car. We'll come back to that one. One man I think he's on a charge then is, we'll come back to that as well completely, because Dan has lost the lead then. Jinner is back up into the P1 then for the McLaren, I should say. Then good stuff indeed then. Into the pits comes Umabro, and then he's calling it there on the hard compound tyres now. We've got IRS then, who is not going to get himself back past Dynamo Dan then, so Dynamo Dan stays P5 then. Mr. Elite then Casey, Rocket League then is all over the back of Casey then into, where is he? There he is, goodness me then, round the outside then. That's not an overtaking position really, but they've gone for it, and they're still going for it then into the second chicane then, and Rocket Lee has done it, and he's taken the place, then he's up into P8, and fantastic stuff indeed, and very well raced indeed between both Williams and the Ferrari as well there. Very clean and very fair indeed. Good respect then on track then between those two. Smithy then up into P10 then, could get himself some more places as well with the penalty situation, and Winnie has got himself another penalty as well. Then Ginger then P11 then is trying to chase down Smithy as well here, and up into Aqua Minerale we go. For the Racing Bull then, racing on after Smithy as well then. Oh dear, Winnie's gone for a move then. He's gone for a move then. Oh dear, he's gone for a move then. Ginger A's got a 3-second penalty then. I think that will definitely be able to be reviewed then for Ginger A, so don't worry too much. But don't you worry then, Ginger A, then, because that penalty will probably be looked at then, and that warning definitely will be able to be removed then, because I think it looked like there was a bit of a nudge then, let's just say there earlier on then. IRS then into the pit lane then, is calling it a day then as well. Casey's in the pit lane. What's happened to Casey then? Casey's calling it, Casey's retired in the pit lane then, so I'm not quite sure what's happened to Casey there. They're not changing the front wing though. They're just he's just pit and quit then, so unfortunately that's Casey's race over and done with then. Well, that was a bit of a shame then. I think he was running up in the top of the order, wasn't he? What's going on there for Casey then? I'm not quite sure. Where am I? I'm trying to find out what he was doing on the stream. He was P8 then on the stream, or P9 on the stream, I'm not sure, but yes, he was doing all right then, I thought, for Casey then, but unfortunately decided to call it a day then in the pit lane then, so fantastic stuff indeed. Mushroom has passed Ginger Age for P11 now. Of course the rules have changed a bit more now because of the pit and quit, but there we are then. Styles up into the top 10 now as it stands as well, then Winnie all over the back of Smithy Almighty as well as we go up the hill then in Aqua Minerale as well then. Mr. Elite then is under pressure from Rocket Lee, then Rocket Lee is now all over the back then of the Haas, I should say, then for P6 now, trying to recover in this race. Then Dan holding on then to the back of that McLaren then of Gin, and then as we go into lap 21 of 32 then. So far so good. That I'm not quite sure if, why Casey is retired in that race then, because he was doing a good job then. Not quite sure what's going on there for the Ferrari. Maybe there was some sort of emergency then indeed, but we will find out then after the race, unfortunately. But Rocket Lee then is going to be on a charge then. Rocket Lee charging up to P6 now, has got himself back up ahead of the Haas then of Mr. Elite, heading into the first chicane. Then good stuff indeed. Then Smithy then has been passed by Winnie then into the first chicane as well. Then Smithy then no penalties then, although I don't want to jinx it. Styles now has joined the fight as well then in the Haas. Then he's trying to get himself back up in the order. Then Real Ashton's picked up a penalty, unfortunately then for the Red Bull. Then so has Winnie again then. So Winnie's picking up penalties as well here. We'll go through the penalties now actually, because there's quite a few out there. 10 seconds for Luke, then that's for speeding in the pit lane then. So technically Luke's got no penalties then, but of course as we've got a problem then for McLaren. And he's gone straight on then as Astrotron then. Not sure what is going on there as well. And he's almost done a Senna. But we don't want to say that too much. But yeah, there we go then. Astrotron then getting himself back on circuit then. But very odd stuff indeed then. He's got wing damage then, major wing damage unfortunately then for the McLaren then. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened then for Astrotron then. Hopefully that car is going to be all right to get himself back into the pits then. But unfortunately not going his way then. Luke then's got 10 seconds then speeding in the pit lane. Corey's got 15 seconds. That is just the track limit penalties unfortunately then for Corey. Dynamo Dan all over the back of him as well then. 9 seconds for Rocket Lee, then 6 for Mr. Elite then as well. Then Smithy, Winnie's got 12 then. Smithy and Hungry Styles, no penalties then for those two. As Jimmy picking up another penalty, that's 6 seconds now for the race leader as we go through then onto lap 22 then. And yeah, there we are then. Ginger Rage's got 9 seconds, same for DeCanco as well. Then Smithy's got himself back past Winnie then into the first chicane then. Good stuff indeed then. DeCanco 9 seconds, same for Slayer as well then in the other racing ball. Then Corey's got another penalty unfortunately. Then IRS has got 9 seconds as well then. So there's quite a few penalties out there as it stands. Then Astrotron then is soldiering on then without any penalties. The same for Dan, the same for Smithy, and the same for Styles as well. So there we go then. Hopefully Astrotron then can get himself back into the pit lane, but he seems to have missed the entry. So nonetheless, we'll crack on. And yeah, there we go then. So Dan then is currently the race leader then, of course, with the penalty situation taken into account. So we'll have to wait and see then after the Grand Prix there. But so far he is doing a fantastic job out there. Then is Dan, then so is Gin, and then so is Luke. Then of course Ginger Rage's got another penalty unfortunately, but we won't mention that, although I already have. But there we go. Corey then's 18 seconds, and Dynamo Dan all over the back of him as well. Then for that P4 position, potentially Dynamo Dan. Of course he's in a championship contention fight, I suppose you could say, because he's currently P3 in the standings. He's quite a way off, unfortunately, the top of the order then, which is Luke then. But if he can get himself within that 7-second range, which I think actually he could be actually good Dynamo Dan, as he takes P4. If Dynamo Dan can keep the penalties down then, and of course get himself within that 7 seconds, well, he's under 7 seconds to Luke already then, isn't he? So if he can get that gap, then it will keep that gap then as well to Luke. He could get himself back on the podium then and ahead of the championship leader as well then, Luke. Then of course that penalty then will not be able to be removed, I should say, then, unless he does serve it under well, in the pit lane, I should say, but he wouldn't be able to serve it under a safety car, that is, because it would not be able to be removed then at this stage of the Grand Prix now. So there we go then, that's the order state of play then as it is. Then the top three then are scampering off in the distance. There they are then in shot, then heading into the final chicane then on lap 23. So far so good then. We've got more battling going on down the order then. Dynamo Dan and Corey Brennan then into the final chicane as well. Then I thought Corey was going to go into the back of the Williams then, of the Red Bull then I should say, but no, he's got himself sorted. Astrotron's picked up a penalty then. Unfortunately he is not coming to pit lane and to get himself a new front wing there, so I'm not sure that's going to be very helpful indeed, especially with picking up penalties then. Going round here with a bit of damage then is very bad indeed, as I found out on Sunday. So there we go then. Heading through then into the final couple of corners then is this gaggle of cars then. They're all forming up behind Mr. Elite then, who is now is 4 seconds behind Rocket Lee then. We've got more action then as Corey takes back the place then on Dynamo Dan then into the first chicane then. He's back up into P4 then is Corey then. Good stuff indeed. Rocket Lee, his teammate, is chasing both of them down as well then. Rocket Lee on the charge here as well then. Rocket Lee will be able to gain a place then on his teammate as it stands in. He will also hold on to that place from Mr. Elite then. Will he be able to get the gap then up to Smithy and Styles as well? There is the question, no, but Rocket Lee has got some pace then on his car then, in his car I should say then. He's also got some younger tyres as well, which is good stuff indeed. Smithy and Winnie then battling then through Tozer then, looks like, and Mr. Elite then is holding on to P7 now, but Mr. Elite is unfortunately falling back into the clutches then of these two I should say then, and his teammates Styles and Mushroom in P11 as it stands. There we go, that's the situation there. But then lap 24 soon to become lap 25, and my goodness me, then the speed going into the chicane, it looks like they're going to go into the back of each other there, but they managed to keep themselves just out of harm's way, and heading on to lap 25 now. We've got Dan with some DRS then heading past then into the lead of the Grand Prix then, I think. Yes, it looks like he has got it. Has he got it in question? I'm not quite sure where they are, but there they are. They've got themselves sorted, and Dan goes through then into the lead of the Grand Prix then. Dynamo Dan back past Corey Brennan then for P4, then these two carrying on their fight then. Rocket Lee is only 1.5 seconds behind as well, then of course he still didn't lose too much time with the DRS as well. Then Smithy takes the P7 position away from Mr. Elite, and Winnie has gone through as well, then Mr. Elite down to P9 then, and there comes his teammate Styles as well then in P10, then no penalties for Styles then, same for Smithy as it stands as well, then the race leader as well, Dan is the only three that without any penalties at this stage of the race then. Can they hold out then for the remaining 7 laps of the Grand Prix is the question. Wow, I'm losing my breath. But so far so good then. Styles has gone past then his teammate Mystery. I think there might be some team orders down then at the Haas garage, and Styles has gone through then. Mystery then is now trying to hold up Mushroom then into Aqua Minerale. Then Styles needs to get his foot down so that his teammate can have a bit of breathing room as well there, but he has done very nicely indeed. Then Rocket Lee picks up a penalty then, but Rocket Lee is now within DRS range then of his teammate, and unfortunately they're not in DRS range of Dynamo Dan, because Corey has dropped out of that 1 second window unfortunately, but now the Williams then are free to fight I think then in this stint of the race then. Of course Rocket Lee with the less penalties then will get himself that place then into P5 then nonetheless, even if the situation stays the same then, but we'll have to wait and see. There's going to be some team orders down at the Haas garage, Williams garage sorry, as we got more contact then for the race leaders then. Dan squeezes back through, Gina tries to cover off Luke as well then, as Rocket Lee has gone past then into P5 then, passing his teammate Corey for that position as well then, so maybe some team orders down at Williams then, letting the faster car go through at this stage of the race then as well. Then lap 26 and of 32 there is going to be 6 laps of racing to go at the end of lap 26, but we might see quite a bit more action then as it stands, and we've got all sorts of action as Winnie's off the circuit then at the second at the second chicane I should say. Goodness me, there's too many Italian words around here, but there we are. He's down to P11 unfortunately, but Styles, Mr. Elite and Serious Mushroom have gone through then. Smithy now and the Styles, they're in a good spot then with the penalty situation then as well, for those around him, around them I should say then, because the penalties then are adding up then. They will be in range of both the Williams, and they will not be in range I don't think of Dynamo Dan. Potentially could get themselves in the range of Luke's 10-second penalty then. Umabra picks up a penalty as well then, but he's doing a good job then soldiering on out there. He's only got 6 seconds as well and could gain himself a couple of places then into the top 15. Of course the top 15 scoring bronze then, not just the top 10 then as well. So it is not all doom and gloom just yet then. Dan has lost the lead, then Jinna takes back the lead, then here comes Luke then into P, or not quite then. Luke I thought was going to shape for a move then, but he couldn't quite get the get that kick salver then past that Alpine at this point of the circuit then, but maybe into the second chicane, not quite again then for Luke. Then he has to sit behind for the time being, but like I was saying then, Luke can Luke hold on to P3? Unfortunately I don't think he can then, in terms of the situation. He needs to get himself a 1.6 second gap over Dynamo Dan then, which isn't undoable, or not doable I should say then, but we'll have to wait and see. Rocket Lee trying to put the pressure on Dynamo Dan now. He's caught up then to the Red Bull as well. Then Rocket Lee has got some serious pace out there. Will Smithy be able to catch up then? He's got a 5 point, no, it's over 11 seconds I think then is the gap then between Smithy then and Luke, that is. So Smithy then could be not be able to get himself on the podium then, but it looks like Dynamo Dan then at this stage of the race then could potentially get himself a good podium here, and we'll have to wait and see. Then iOS picks up a penalty, but now Rocket Lee has rocketed into the DRS range then of the Red Bull then of Dynamo Dan. Then it's been a fantastic recovery then from Rocket Lee. Then even the penalties I don't think will be too much of a problem then for Rocket Lee. He might lose out to Smithy and to Hungry Stars then, but everybody else then he should be okay, A-okay with. We're A-okay with in terms of they won't be able to pass him then on the penalty situation, that is. And of course we don't even know yet, because we might see some penalties removed then for Rocket Lee. We might see some penalties removed for other drivers as well then, depending on their reports after the race as well. So we will have to wait and see and play it by ear as Styles gets himself past then into P7, then passing Smithy Almighty. Then can Styles then lead the charge then into the top 6 potentially? Then we'll have to wait and see. Then maybe they've switched roles on purpose there. a bit of team game then, a bit of a team game, or a bit of a teamwork going on then, I should say then, even though they're not in the same team, that is. Serious Russian up into P9, then passing Mystery, then of course in the terms of the penalty then, Serious Russian was going to gain that place nonetheless anyway, but now he's going to try and charge on then and see what he can get then as well. The Umabro has passed Jake the Slayer then for P15, and well, that was going to happen as well then. Again, same sort of situation with penalties as well then around here, but Jake the Slayer then has dropped down to P16, then Styles picks up a penalty, and that's the first penalty then for Styles. Then unfortunately it's still not too bad though, because he's still going to be able to gain 2 places at least then on the Williams pair ahead of him. He will lose out to Smithy though at this stage, of course, unless Smithy picks up a penalty as well. Then we'll have to wait and see then. Right then, Dan then is leading the way then, or not leading the way, sorry, Ginner leading the way then on to lap 29 then. There's going to be 3 laps of racing to go then at the end of this one then, but we go into the first chicane, the top 3, extending their gap to 5.5 seconds, and it's staying quite steady actually. Rocket Lee has rocketed past then for P4, then he's flown into P4 though, I should say, into the first chicane, then the Williams then up into P4 as well, then Smithy Almighty back past Styles, then down the same straight then. I think these two might be working together to try and bring that gap down then, but unfortunately it's still at 6 seconds. Then Mystery and Serious Mushroom battling as well then into the first chicane, and unfortunately that wasn't as smooth as the previous Haas and Kick Sauber pairing that went through the first chicane as well. Then Ginger Age has been passed by Decanco then for P12, and Ginger Age then is I think he's going to get some points then still in this race then if he can keep it all of course. Remember, he's got the older tyres as well then, so that's the problem then for that's the problem for Ginger Age, then he's got the older tyres, then 19 lap old tyres then compared to Decanco's 16 lap old tyres, so there's a bit of a discrepancy there in the tyre life as well then. So I'm sure Ginger Age will be able to power on to the finish line then nonetheless then, or maybe even go for a set of soft compound tyres then for a fastest lap attempt. You never know, there could be some people going for that as well. We go through then into the final Ravazza then for lap 30 then to commence, and Dan still within DRS range but not close enough, I don't think, to make a move then into the first chicane. Luke then just waiting in the wings as well then. I think Luke's trying to extend the gap then as well. Then Rocket Lee has flown off then, and Dynamo Dan is out of DRS range I think then to the Rocket, and wow, he is really putting his foot down then, is Rocket Lee, then he's storming off into the distance then as well. Then Rocket Lee then Dynamo Dan then is going to be having to try and keep within the penalty situation. I think there's Rock Hungry Styles back past Smithy then into the first chicane. Then once again then these two are switching places as well. Right behind them is the second pair that's switching places as well. Then Serious Russian back up into P9. Winnie catching up then on the younger tyres as well. Then Winnie then into the 1.4 seconds behind the top 10 as well, I should say, as we go through then into the final echelons then of this Grand Prix. So far it's been fantastic, and the driver of the day poll is not going to be out in the comment section unfortunately tonight because Farf is having hotspot issues and he's got no internet, so there we go. And Dan has had a bit of a difficult time then through Aqua Minerale then, and Luke, oh dear, Luke pushing the Alpine through the final chicane then, and my goodness me then, Jin was trying to skate off in the distance, and unfortunately Jin's going to get himself 6 seconds then in the lead of this race. He's going to find another 5 then in the final 2 laps then of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix then. The final time we're doing this in bronze, the final time we're doing this in ALR, or in the F124 I should say, goodness me. Oh, there it is, Luke. There's your driver of the day poll, so get your votes in then for driver of the day then. Luke, Smithy, Ginner and Dan are your candidates then. So far they have got, as Luke has been got himself up into P2 then, passing Dan then for that position as well, then of course penalties permitting, that is, but unfortunately for Luke then he's going to have to try and do some fantastic racing indeed then to get himself a 10-second gap in the next lap and a half now. They've got a bit of a slower car then, I think that is Jake the Slayer then on the soft compound tyres as well there, so he has gone for the soft compounds. Winnie's also in the pits for the soft compound tyres as well then, so that's interesting stuff indeed then. So get your votes in then for driver of the day then quickly. You've got Luke, Smithy, then Ginner and Dan, and we'll have a look at the position changes as well then. So Ginner has held the lead from pole position and as it stands, but the penalties then are not in his favour then, the same for Luke as well then. Dan will take the lead of the Grand Prix, or win of the Grand Prix I should say then, with the penalty situation as it stands. Jake says got a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. Very good stuff indeed when he comes out of the pits in P13. But of course, like I said, there is the situation then as well. Dynamo down up 6 places, then same for Smithy then, who could gain some more places even with the penalty situations then for those ahead of him. But we'll come back to that then as we go through then into the final lap of the Grand Prix I should say then. There we are then, lap 32 then of 32 has commenced here, and Ginner leads the way. He's got out of DRS range of Luke. Dan. There's too many Dans in then it was only 2 Dans, but there we go. So Dan then goes through, then we'll have a look at the penalty situation as well, then as we go through then in the final lap as well, then flying through, then Luke has picked up a 3-second penalty, then Dynamo Dan is back past Rocket League then for that P4 position, then he needs to try and keep within Luke's penalty range as well then, but I think he's within it for the time being, with Luke picking up that extra 3-second penalty as well then, so it is not all doom and gloom just yet then as we go through. Then it's still a podium on the cards for Dynamo Dan here. Rocket League then could hold on to a good P6, P7 position, I think, but it'll still be a good recovery then nonetheless then after that difficult part of the race then for Rocket League. Then here's Stallman, then he's trying to push Dynamo Dan through the corners here in this final lap. Then we'll come back to that. Then Ginny's picking up another 3 seconds as well, then 9 seconds now from McLaren. Heading into the final chicane, then we go then as we go over the crest of the hill. Then there's a lapped car, I think, then of real Ashton. Then as we go down the hill towards the final part of the race as well here. Then Jake the Slayer staying on the lead lap as well. Good stuff indeed. Then I think real Ashton as well staying on the lead lap just about then as well. Then, but maybe he'll pull over now. But there we go then. As Jake the Slayer set the fast lap of the race, then Jinner wins the Grand Prix. But of course, penalty permitting, then Dan is your victor then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Then the Alpine driver then takes the top spot. Then a brilliant drive indeed, as we've got quite a few changes to the order, I should say then. But there we go then. Dan in the Alpine then claims the victory here in Imola. Then fantastic drive indeed then from Dan. No penalties then for the Alpine driver then, and that is fantastic. He gets himself a very well-deserved race victory then in the Alpine machine. Then Jinner then P2, very well done indeed then from pole position. Of course, the penalties then coming back to bite him, unfortunately. Then Dynamo Dan P3 then minimising the penalties as well. Then only 3 seconds for Dynamo Dan, gets himself on the podium once again then here in Imola. Luke P4 then, very well done indeed to the championship lead, then negating that 10-second penalty as well. Then Smithy P5, Hungry Stars P6, Serious Mushroom P7, Rocket Lee P8, then Corey P9, Mr. Elite P10, then Dukanko P11, Ginger Age P12, Winnie P13, Umabro P13, Winnie P14, IRS in P15 rounds off the points paying positions. Then Jake the Slayer then will come home in P17, I think. Then, well, no, he won't. He'll be yes, he will be P17, as Real Ashton will get that P16 position. Then Astrojon then is finished P18. Unfortunately for Astrojon, then he had the issues as well then with the front wing damage earlier on in the stint as well. Then Casey and Gaming Infinity retired from this Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And there we are. There's the top 3 then in the podium celebration, celebrating away then in Imola. Then there is Dan then on the top spot then in the Alpine. Then Jinner then P2 in the McLaren, and Dynamite Dan P3 tonight then in the Red Bull as well. Then we'll go through the full classification in just a moment. Then we've got the driver of the day votes. Then Dan leads the way then with the votes then, which is now closed. Then Smithy and Mighty then P2, then Luke P3, and Jinner in P4. Then, well, I think they were tied in P3 actually, but there we go then. So Dan claims the victory then, and claims the driver of the day as well. Then there is the classification then, of course, for the what is it, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. We'll run through that. We've already run through it as well there, but we'll have a quick snapshot as well there, so that everyone can see it then. And we'll run through. What I'll do is I'll quickly run through the race director as well, so we can have a quick check on the race warnings and whatnot as well. No, okay, the game's going to close on me. Okay then. Right then, well, we've done that, so that's that sorted. We'll start off with the interviews then in that case, but congratulations then to the top 3. We'll just get that sorted. There we are then. We'll start off then with our race winner then. So we've got Dan then, of course, minimising the penalties then was your thoughts, I think, going into the race, or was that just a happy coincidence then as you crossed the line at the end of that race?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, that was stressful. Believe it or not, I had 2 track limit warnings after 2 laps. Lap 1, turn 1, lap 2, turn 1, and then the rest was just creeping around on my tippy toes. Race engineer in my ear every single lap, almost every single corner, saying track limits, and just trying to keep it between the white lines, and it paid dividends in the end. So yeah, very happy, back-to-back wins.
And did you think before you started off in the beginning of lap 30, well, lap 31, lap 30, no, lap 1, sorry, goodness me, I've done 32 laps, I'm already, my brain's fried. Did you think when you started off at the beginning of lap 1 that the race win was on the cards tonight, or were you just trying to challenge for the podium here?
Well, starting P4, it wasn't ideal. The rain in qualifying caused stress, carnage for just who could get out quickly and get a lap time on the board. So P4 it was, but the strategy was to sort of follow the front pack, which I did. Went for the undercut, which worked. But then Jinnah had very, very good pace. He managed to catch up and overtake me again. But by that time he had 3, 6, then 9 seconds of penalties. Luke had 10, I assume, going into the pits. Then he got a further 3. So I didn't have to win at that moment. It was just a case of minimising any track penalties that I get and just staying within DRS and bringing it home.
And absolutely brilliant race indeed. Then once again, then from yourself, then of course closing the gap then to Luke then in the championship as well. Then tonight, do you think maybe a bit more of the same then for the next few races? Then we'll get yourself back into the potentially the lead of the championship or a contention for the lead of the championship.
Yeah, certainly. If we carry on how we are going, then I'm feeling confident. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next week already.
Great stuff indeed. We'll see you in a week's time then in Spain, of course. Then Jinnah then in P2 will come over to you. Unfortunately, tonight it seemed like the penalties then were, well, it wasn't just for yourself. It was quite a few people out there were racking up then, and unfortunately cost you the race victory. Then from pole position, then a fantastic qualifying as usual, as we've seen from yourself before. But how did it go for you in the race? And was there any frustrations then, or was it just unfortunate with the penalties there? He doesn't seem to be talking. So there we go then. Right then, Dynamo Dan, we'll come on to you then. P3 tonight. Again, similar to your former teammate, Dan, minimising the penalties. And I think you only got one 3-second penalty in the end there. Got yourself a podium then under your belt. Then how do you feel after that one?
Yeah, I can't complain with that. I had a wet setup as well, so I'll take any point I can get in that race.
Seems like wet setup's not so bad then, so maybe you could try using the wet setup in every race.
Apparently I've cracked it, yeah. But no, I was lacking a lot of pace on the straights, but I was alright on the bends, to be fair. And a bit like Dan, I think I got 2 warnings on the first lap, but then I started to take it easy.
And of course, in terms of the strategy, then there was quite a few drivers then that were well in a bit of a queue, then in a bit of a train, then in the first stint. Then of course, after the pit stops unfolded, there was a bit more clean air then, and you sort of powered your way through then into sort of P3, into P4, P5 sort of territory. Of course, minimising the penalties as well. Then did you think did you know that you had the penalty podium on the cards then with the penalties for the drivers ahead?
I was trying to work it out, but it messed with my driving, so I stopped calculating. But some of the penalties are in the double figures, so I knew I had a chance, and I was just letting people overtake me so I could use their DRS. I was a bit nervous on the last 2 turns with people trying to overtake me, but I just kept out of the way, and luckily it didn't. I think Jinnah was 3 seconds ahead anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But I'll take a P3
I can't remember, to be honest, but yeah, I agree. Good stuff indeed then. And like I said, another... Oh, sorry.
It's just my mic playing up.
All right. So, I was going to say another podium then under your belt as well. Then of course you were P3 before we started off tonight. You've I think just cemented that P3, of course, but I think Dan sort of escaped you a little bit there, of course, with his race win. Then you might have gained a bit on Luke actually, to be fair, because Luke finished behind you tonight. Then, but what's your thoughts then in terms of the championship? Then are you going to be going for it in the next I think it's 9, 10 races, something like that. For the season, or are you going to be just happy with a podium, with a P3 then tonight and the rest of the season?
I don't think I have the time or pace like Dan and Jinnah and Luke, so I would just be happy with a podium, to be fair. But you never know. We'll see what happens.
Fair dues indeed. Then congratulations then to unfortunately Jinnah didn't join us. There we go. Goodness me, can't get my words out tonight. But Jinnah, then congratulations in P2. As well, then Dan P1 then in the Alpine, and Dynamo Dan P3 then in the Red Bull as well. We'll see you next week for some more bronze action then in Spain. We'll be off there then into Barcelona then next week. Then of course gold then on Sunday night, silver on Monday night, and of course more bronze action in a week's time here in or soon to be in Barcelona as well. Then so stay tuned to ALR. We'll play more action coming up, and we'll see you soon.